Commissioner Brennan, did you have something else?
Yeah, I'm going to bring this up now because I don't know if this should be an agenda item or an informational report, but I think everybody is aware at this point that we had one of our fish buyers had a hoist that plunged into Pillar Point Harbor recently and had to be extracted from the bottom of the harbor. It's my understanding that the hoist cannot be used again, and it's also my understanding that there were some issues with the reinstallation of that hoist, which the district initiated. So I've emailed now several times to the general manager asking for an update on the situation with the hoist because we have salmon season opening soon. I have not gotten a response back from the general manager, and this has been going on now for, I don't know, a couple weeks. So I'm thinking that we need to just go ahead and put it on the agenda, but I'm interested in getting input from the board.
Mr. President, if I may, I think this item would be better served under commissioner comments and statements, and then we can hear directly from the manager. This is now the time for appropriate for motions.
I'd like to have a report on the hoist because we have a big problem with salmon season opening and we've got a hoist down.
And I have no problem with that. I'm just suggesting it's better handled under the appropriate agenda item as opposed to motions now for agenda items.
Well, I moved that we make it an agenda item to get a report from the general manager on the predicament with the hoist.
Okay. So there's a motion. Is there a second to the motion? Okay. I will second the motion. Any questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, because this is a money issue. Sorry. Let's do roll call. Sorry about that.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
No.
Commissioner Carvana?
Abstain.
Commissioner Kepler?
No.
President Bernard?
Aye. The motion does not carry. So why don't we do the reports first? 7, 8, and 9. General Manager, Director of Finance, HR Manager. So, Mr. Grenell.
You have my report. I'll take any questions.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioners, on General Manager's report?
I would like an update on the hoist at Johnson Pier that fell into the water.
You have received an extensive update from Harbormaster Grindy, and I'll defer to that. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, Mr. Grenell, are you you're referring to you have information? You mean in the report or where?
No, Harbormaster Grindy has responded to emails with details on the hoist situation.
Okay.
And he is prepared to update
Great.
you all in his report.
Great. So for the benefit of the public who have not seen those emails, Harbormaster Grindy, maybe you can summarize.
Sure. Regarding the place that fell, first off, I'm going to go back in time a little bit. When we were doing the project on Johnson Pier, we required the bull rail, which is the curb that's made of usually wood or plastic. And the bull is the forklift to keep it from falling off the pier. That was replaced as part of the rejuvenation work we did last year, as well as deck coating. During that time, the contractor had to remove the bull rails so that the hoist that rests on top of the curbing on bull rail could be replaced because they're getting old and rotten. Same contractor replaced it. There was some paint work done and an electrical disconnect done at the same time, just to make sure that more than anything, right of courtesy, because we had to have it away from the dock while we did our work. The electrical on the other side was, in fact, that's a safety requirement. The installation for the specific hoist, the Valentine Company went to put it back. And similar to the other hoist on the other side of the pier owned by the other fish Mike McHenry. Mike McHenry replaced his bearings, top and bottom, and so did Jay Howard. Part of the research I did when I got back for being gone was it happened. The bearings on the one hoist that fell, what my understanding at this time is that the bearing did not fit. It was too tight. So the staff person from that firm, the Dave Mowry's firm, replaced it with a smaller size outer diameter bearing. At that time, we did not know that happened. But my impression is right off the top, that's a press, what they call a pressed bed bearing. So it has to have a press, that hydraulic press is pushed into place. That may have caused the problem right off the top. Can't guarantee it, but it may cause the problem right off the top. That was done roughly in June of last year. When that occurred, the contractor did like he did with the other ones, basically said, okay, is everything okay? Everything works fine. Both vendors said that's fine. In December, about 16th or so, we get a call. I got a call from Dave saying, it's not working right, it's not swinging right. I think it's something with the installation. So I contacted Valentine Contractor. And I also called Prince and Welding because they had a good amount of experience with these hoists, trying to get on it right away. So basically both vendors were here the following day or something like that. They're within 24 hours they responded. Some suggestions of solutions were made, and because there was going to be downtime, Mr. Mallory asked that we wait till he was ready when the crap season was done to do any corrections. He, in that conversation, was supposed to call Princeton Welding and call him back. At the same time, that Valentine Construction made a comment very strongly saying, we would like to see the maintenance records on this hoist, since it's been 5-6 months since it was installed. No hoist records were available. Obviously, the hoist fell in the water. One staff person was there from the district. There was a staff person from Dave Mallory's team showing the swing issues, as well as Chris and Welding. And so, in the short version of all of this, basically it fell in. And it hit the wall, and the guy swung it to the north side. It hit the framework that's right there with the squid operation, and it pushed the top up. Nothing to hold it down anymore because it's supported from the top as well as our pivot on the bottom. It just dropped off. Everyone's very lucky no one got hurt, and so forth. I called up our what's called an AC3. They're a firm that basically does our certifications for our. We have to have our hoist over by the bulkhead certified annually. I asked the owner if he could come out and just give me a thumbnail idea of what does he see, what summation, what's going on. He came out last Friday. He shook his head when he saw the older stop. He did not want to put anything in writing. He said that if he put anything in writing, it would go to Cal OSHA. Because he said these hoists are so old, they're in the 25+ year range. They have a category that does not require certification, you know, but there's no engineer stamp or nameplate you'd see normally welded on a piece of equipment. There's, numerous minor issues that go behind that, but there's nothing saying it was built in a garage, built in a shop, or whatever, and what its load limits were, and any modifications that made since the 25+ years that they were installed. It was his recommendation. He doesn't sell hoists, but he makes, inspections of them. He said it was highly recommended that we, as soon as we could, in the sense regarding the fish fires, get those hoists replaced. He said, if Cal OSHA came out, do an inspection today, and if there's a leasing process showing that there's a proactive step to get these replaced, they would see that as proactive steps, and they'd see a plan, and they were okay with that. But he said if they just came out and looked at it in that present state, any one of them, more than likely to continue their inspections further just to make sure there's anything else that's not found that's of age or wear or, concern. So basically, the hoists are not unusable. However, they need to get moving on getting something replaced. Dave Mallory has taken his to Princeton Welding. He's going to make some changes. He sent a letter, or email, I should say, to us today of his concerns and hoping that there would be some cost share because of us initially touching the hoist when we did the construction work last year. And that's kind of a short version of a long story because it's a very long story as far as all the little innuendos and timing and emails and everything else that went with this.
Thank you. That really helps a lot. Questions, commissioners?
Yes. That brings to mind the other hoists that are out there. I would assume they're in the same general
I'm going to call it the old three.
right, the old three. Now, assuming that that's the responsibility of the fish buyer, which we know it is,
Right.
and I think the argument, at least from Mallory's, that we did touch it when we moved the bumpers. I could, at a later date, see a possibility of cost sharing there. Tell me about certification, because I know we have to certify our bulkhead hoist this April.
Right.
Now, can they buy 3 hoists and have them put out there so they can get certified with us in April to put this to bed?
Well, without saying cost of delivery and everything else that's concerned, turnaround is probably 30 days, 45 days from the date of the order. Give or take, the vendor. The hoists that are of similar nature but are certified hoists, they're a little heavier duty in design and they're engineered and everything, for sure. They're kits, basically, so they would be brought in and installed, essentially like Princeton Welding, and then certified by a company like what we use.
Would it help at all if this body issued at the appropriate time in the appropriate agenda item a letter saying that we expect them to do this by a certain period of time? That would show proaction on our part?
I think that would help. There's a major, my concern is the safety out there. And, that was why I sent them the letter initially in January after looking at hoists, realizing at that point that they were not getting them certified. I was not sure if they required certification until I had my person come out.
One last thought, and then I'm quiet, Mr. President. I'd like to ask our attorney, inasmuch as this is in a report tonight, which has been agendized, is it appropriate for us at some point in the proceedings to make a motion, have a letter drafted?
Yes, you may do that.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good questions. Commissioners, other questions?
I have a few.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you very much for the report. I appreciate that. So just in trying to understand the backstory here, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it at another meeting. When the hoists were taken down, because my understanding is we were resurfacing that section of Johnson Pier, and we were putting in a new rail, which is what the hoist attaches.
Unfortunately, they sit on those.
They sit on the rail, so they had to move in order to put in the new rail. The hoists were then taken off-site, and they were painted. Sandblasted and painted. Okay, the yellow, because I've seen them. But only 2 were taken away and sandblasted and painted, or were...
Unfortunately, in the engineering specs, the engineer did not include the third one in the back. It was one of those things where I just got here, I was adding to the specs at that time as we went out to bid, and they did not catch that, but they did not include all 3.
Okay. So...
And, go ahead.
Okay, so the district, if I remember correctly, we paid for the painting and the...
It wasn't much, but it was basically the convenience of getting them out of there.
Okay, so we paid to have them removed, and we paid to paint them and maybe do some welding on them?
I don't remember if there was welding, but there was putting an electrical disconnect out there off our house power that serves those.
So some substantial work.
And the disconnect is a lockable disconnect, so that if today I walked out there and I saw an unsafe condition, and let's say, using Dave Mallory as an example, and was nobody there, but I saw that, I could lock it out, so somebody would not just turn it on.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
It's
you
to
gotta have a way to secure it, and that's my code.
I see, okay. So, it's my understanding that Dave got the hoist when he took on the lease, because it was already pre-existing?
Yeah, I don't remember the firm's name right off the top, I think it was called Catio or something, it was before my time for sure, it was 25 or 20 years ago or so, maybe 10.
So the hoist was there
15.
with whoever,
Yeah, it was a ways back, but that firm before him,
the fish fire before?
yeah, had that all out there.
Okay. And so was that also the case for Mike McHenry's hoist, that it came with the building, or did he?
I haven't looked into that part of it.
Okay.
I'm more focused on the
Okay, so we don't know.
as far as the historical went.
So just so I understand, the guy who gave them the once-over or whatever and said that he didn't think they would pass an OSHA inspection, did he was he only talking about the 2 yellow hoists? Was that all he looked at?
Well, he looked at all 3.
But did he look at the one on the back side of the
Yes, he
building?
did.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, we
Okay.
walked all the way around the whole building, because he was trying just to give me his, an idea of what issues he saw. And that was why I asked him to come out.
I guess the reason I'm confused is there's the one in the back. There used to be 2, but now we're down to 1 in the back for Larry. And then in the front, we've got the 2 yellow ones, Dave Mowry's, Mike McHenry's, and then there's one other one that's Mike McHenry. So Mike has 2.
Oh, okay, well, the big one that Mike McHenry has, the consultant did not, or the firm, certification firm, did not have any real issue with his.
With that one?
He said there's some, obviously the bolts are rusty, he looked underneath real quick and said the same thing that I talked to Mike today. He said he's replacing the plates underneath, because those are through bolts, so they go through the deck, and there's a plate underneath with the nuts on top of that, so that it doesn't pull out.
Right.
And the beauty of that design, it's a common design, it's a kit type design, is that you're using the whole deck. If someone overloads or something goes wrong, the deck is holding it, not a piece of wood.
So as far as like load bearing goes, that one could handle the most weight?
Yeah.
I see. And the others are not secured to the pier in the
No,
same?
they're not secured to the deck. They're basically, there's 2 or 3, depending which one, braces that go to the building, and then there is bull rail that's bolted this way through, and that's suspended a bit above the ground.
The rail?
Yeah,
The new
that's
rail?
right.
Yeah.
And so what occurs is that, when I talked to Dave Mowry when I first got here, he said, this one's got a little bit of a problem. And that's when him and I agreed that when I replaced the bull rail, we just hoist as well. Because I was looking at bull rail when I first came here. And when his hoist was on that, it was actually going down when he put the load on it.
So it was moving?
Yeah.
Okay, with the old rail. But now that problem isn't, we don't even know because there's no
Well,
hoist.
if it's moving very slight.
Okay.
And, honestly, the one thing the consultant inspector said was that nothing should ever be found into that. And I wholeheartedly agree. That was a design from way back, and it helps the reach to get out of the boat better because you're closer to the edge, but it does not help the strength and support. The other thing on the electrical side that these older hoists don't have is what's called a motor heater. And it's not a heater in the sense of making heat. It's, you think of what a circuit breaker does, it trips when it gets to an overload. Well, a motor heater is set up to where you adjust your load capacity by amps on the wattage of the load, so that it's more sensitive to an overload on the motor. So if I was lifting something that was more than the hoist could lift, that heater block would trip out before the circuit breaker. Faster to react.
So it's a safety
It's a safety
mechanism.
thing, and that was on those either.
Okay. So with OSHA, if Cal OSHA, sorry, I don't know much about OSHA. So would Cal OSHA, would they fine for something like this, or would they write a?
Actually, well, for which piece?
If they came out and visited.
I haven't had a lot of experience with Cal OSHA here, but typically in any state inspector type firm, like I had labor and industries up north, same thing as Cal OSHA, just a different state agency name. Typically, they come out, they may fine, they may shut you down. It's up to them. It's up to that inspector. And believe me, they have trained inspectors, hoist inspectors. Robert, you're probably very experienced with all the inspectors along with the gantry cranes. I dealt with that too, and where I came from. And I had small hoists as well as big gantries. The inspectors are on it, and they're ready to come out of the heartbeat. But when they do, they have the potential to shut you down, and you have to make corrections now, not, a month out.
They don't give you a window of time.
That's right.
I just have a couple more questions. I'm almost done. So do other harbors provide hoists for their fish buyers typically, or is it all over the map? Like, what's kind of the standard?
I can answer without, I'll say, first my answer has to be all over the map, because everybody's different. Using Port of Seattle, Port of Everett, Port of Newport, Oregon, they all have fish hoists of this type. And for the most part, the ones that are owned by the fish buyers are operated by the fish buyers. And the reason being is with the liability, when you have your own, if we bought them for them and owned them as, let's say, lease back or something of that sort, we take on their liability for their operator. And some of the ports that have fish buyer type situations or fish unloading, they actually have a couple hoists, but they're larger hoists and they're operated by district or port staff.
So the Port of Everett doesn't,
We don't, well, I should say, that as far as I know, I haven't been there for 2 years, they're not unloading fish anymore. They took down their last hoist just about 3 years ago.
but when they had a hoist, was it their hoist or was it a fish?
It was their hoist, but it was a public hoist.
I see.
Similar to what we have at our bulkhead.
So I'm kind of wondering, because, our public hoist isn't really usable due to the fact that there's so much silting up of...
It's usable, it's just the silting is, the dredging is needed.
Dredging is needed, and so nobody wants to go near it.
Well, it gets used about every week.
Well, I don't know. I just get a lot of calls about how difficult it is to use it. I'm trying to think if there's another question here.
Well, my colleague is thinking, may I jump in just for
Yeah,
just
go
a
for it.
moment?
Okay, Commissioner Pepper.
It seems to me that as a public agency, now we've been alerted to an incident that happened, a serious incident. Fortunately, there was no damage to human life. We now have a responsibility. And while my colleague is thinking about her question, let me just put a motion on the floor for purposes of discussion. I would move that the general manager be instructed to communicate in writing with the 3 fish buyers, explaining to them that we understand that there's been an incident and that they now should be required to either change or have certified their 3 hoists that exist. And then they should be prepared to do a certification when we do our certification. This, whether it carries weight or not, will at least put OSHA, and I've dealt with Cal OSHA in the construction industry, and they can be rather tough. At least it puts them on notice that we're proactive, we're doing something, we've told our tenants, here's what you must do to comply in our opinion. And I think that's important, and I would make that a form of a motion.
And just for the intent of discussion.
May I get a second first?
Yeah, is there a second? So
Yes,
there's-
I would second it,
Okay,
and in
motion
seconding
second.
it, I would note that because this is an issue of public safety, I would ask that the president deem that this is an emergency issue that we act on tonight, because it is communicating
Sure,
only,
yes.
it's not an expenditure of
Yes.
funds.
Yes.
And that we take a substantive vote on the motion tonight.
Yes, so let's,
Mr. President, because I have a financial conflict of interest with this agenda item, I'm going to recuse myself.
okay, understood.
And I have a couple questions
recused.
about the motion.
Okay, why don't we, before we,
Why don't you take, I'm sorry for interrupting you,
Yeah.
excuse me. Could you ask your question on the other thing so that we can get that out of the way before we go into the discussion of the motion?
No, I'm not gonna, that's okay. I'm gonna pass on that, but I do want to respond to the motion.
okay, regarding, question regarding the motion, that's on.
So, we just got a very helpful report from the Harbormaster, but we haven't heard from the fish buyers yet, although I do have a letter here from Dave Mallory. I don't believe that this has been provided to the whole board yet. And before we go off and do some sort of emergency decision which hasn't been agendized and noticed to the public properly.
Emergency doesn't need to be.
Well,
if it's an
I'm just pointing out that it hasn't been agendized, so the public hasn't been noticed, there's been no public process, there's been no opportunity for the public to make suggestions or raise concerns or weigh in any way. And this affects our fishing fleet as well as our fish buyers. For those reasons, I think that it would be premature to do something because we haven't even considered the possibility of, well, maybe we should make all the hoists uniform. You know, maybe we shouldn't just have random types of hoists. Maybe we should get the harbor master to investigate what types of hoists are best for our particular pier, and then we would suggest that that be the type of hoist we use, or maybe the structure of the building and the location of where the hoists have been has to change, and then that needs to be thought about. You know, I'm just saying that there might be some more information that we need to consider.
Understood. And Commissioner, I do think, though, that your issue is separate from this, what this motion is about. I think that's something that can be addressed after.
Well, can you restate the motion?
Okay. The motion, okay, if I'm not mistaken, it's to send a letter to our tenants informing them to take action because this is a life safety issue. We don't want any accidents out there. To take action on these cranes, to show us that they are Commissioner Tucker, that they are.
Sure, may I?
Yes.
I would move that we instruct the general manager to write a letter to the 3 fish buyers, explaining to them that we are aware of the incident that happened in the accident and how we're so grateful that nobody was hurt during that process. However, that brings to mind now that the 3 fish buyers must either comply with an inspection of the hoists or buy 3 new hoists at their expense, and that we would work with them toward doing the inspection or the certification when we do our certification of the existing one. And then we can add in, if you wish, Mr. President, the emergent nature of this situation. And what that does, quite frankly, just to finish the thought,
Sure.
what that does, quite frankly, is just at least let somebody know that we're not sitting here as statues, that we recognize the problem and we're trying to deal with it. If we wait for community input, which is pleasant to do if you have the time, I think we would be seen as procrastinating and not doing our job. That's what concerns me the most. We need to make sure safety is the biggest issue.
And if someone gets hurt, I saw Jean. Was it Jean? You had your hand up.
Yes, before you would act on that motion, I think you should first add this to your agenda as suggested by Commissioner Holsinger. I think what he indicated is this is an emergency,
Yes.
something that arose after posting of the agenda, and that there's need to take immediate action. You would need to add that first to your agenda, so that should be the first motion. If that passes,
Can we hold off on my motion and set it aside or table it and then go on to, as far
yes,
as
so you
Robert's?
should first determine that you want to add this to your
All right,
agenda.
then, to get it on the agenda, I would move that the place on the agenda, I would move that the item of the hoists and the three fish buyers be placed on the agenda, and the item having come to us after the appropriate time for posting of the agenda. And inasmuch as it happened that way, we would make it an emergency item.
Okay, I hear a motion to place it as an emergency item on tonight's agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bennett?
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Giovanna? Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye, motion carries. So the item, okay, what we just voted on, just for clarification, is to place it on tonight's agenda as an emergency item. So it is now on tonight's agenda.
Now I would reinstate with the
So
permission
now-
of my second, the motion I just made.
Yes, I concur.
And now this motion is about writing the letter, okay,
Correct.
just for the public. So it's about writing the letter. So there's a motion and a second.
Call the question?
Okay, let's do a roll call on this.
Commissioner
I
Bennett?
still have questions about
Okay,
the motion.
I'm sorry.
Can the motion be restated again, because it's still unclear to me? A lot's happened since we didn't.
Understood. So the maker of the motion, please? Can you
No, let
please
me ask
restate it?
staff to restate it. They heard it
Okay.
twice.
Staff, please restate the motion
Oh,
regarding the letter
Yeah, as I understand it, staff would be directed to send a letter to the 3 tenants concerned, stating that the district is aware that there was an incident and that we are thankful that there was no injury, but that this is a very urgent concern for several reasons. One, that safety is a primary concern, no doubt for them as well as for the district. Second, that there is a potential legal liability involved for each of those tenants as well as the Harbor District, especially given the fact that the provision and maintenance and compliance with all laws and regulations for hoists and other equipment is the stated responsibility of each tenant by their leases, and that the district urges them to immediately bring hoists into full compliance either by repair or replacement with a new hoist, and
That's it.
as needed be certifiable and capable of passing OSHA.
That's
And now I'm
exactly
going to
it.
call for the question.
I have questions about it.
We've gone through this 3 times. I call for the question, and that takes precedent.
I would
Okay,
like
I'm
to.
going to allow Commissioner
You
Brennan one
can't-
more question.
I call for the question. It's not up to vote.
I can still allow it, though.
No, Robert's Rules of
As the-
Order.
Robert's
but
Rules
as
of
the-
Order say no.
I can.
No,
Just-
Robert's
yes,
Rules of Order
it's
say
ju-
call
I-
for the question that calls for an
even-
immediate vote.
Even though that you call for the question, I can still allow it according to Robert's rules.
No, you can't, sir.
I can allow her to finish her question.
Call for the question ceases debate.
It doesn't.
It does.
So I would like to make sure that there's flexibility in this letter. I'm fine with notifying the fish buyers of something I think they already know, which is what their leases state and the fact that there were some concerns raised about the whether or not the hoists are up to code. And I definitely think that conversation needs to happen. But I am concerned about if this letter suggests that they can't use their hoists, and we've got salmon season opening soon, and everybody's put out of business because their hoists are not allowed to be used, well, because of this letter, I'm not sure that that's necessarily what we ought to do tonight. I think we need to think about it a little bit more. And then the other thing is that already Commissioner Tucker said that Dave Mallory, due to the fact that the district took the hoists away, did work to them. We don't know what welding, we know they did paint, we don't know what all was happened because I haven't gotten a full report on that. Sandblast and paint, possibly some welding and some other work to the, what did you call it? What was that other part that you talked about? The electrical.
It's not even, it's remote to the hoist.
Okay, well, whatever. So there was work done, and Commissioner Tucker already said that there might be a cost sharing, or a need for cost sharing that would be reasonable. That's something else that the board may want to consider. I just want to make sure that we're not rushing into a letter that doesn't allow any flexibility where there might need to be some. And I haven't had time to think about it and to think it through. And I don't think that our council has had time to think about it. And I certainly wouldn't want to see us get into a lawsuit because we didn't give people adequate warning that they needed to do work so that they could continue on with their business. Because if we're shutting them down, they're going to be out of business and they're going to be financially impacted, and that would have some pretty heavy repercussions. So I just think we shouldn't, I agree that this is essentially an emergency. Something has to be done, but I think that we need to come up with a solution that makes sense, and I'm not sure that this rush job is adequate.
Okay, thank you. And just,
information.
if I may, Mr. Grenell, a couple of things I just want to say. To close the debate, just back to Robert's rules, to close the debate, just because you call the question doesn't automatically force the vote. You have to have two-thirds vote To end the debate.
You didn't-
And you don't have 2/3 vote
You didn't call for
to end the
it.
debate. Okay.
You allowed
Well,
the process to continue without calling for the vote.
Okay, understood. But I just wanted to clarify that. Now, back to the discussion. Thank you, and that's the last question I will allow. Okay, because the question has been called, and now what we're going to do is we are going to vote. So, can I have a roll call, please, on the vote?
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Carvana? Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernard?
Aye. So the motion carries. Thank you.
Point of question here.
Yes. Clarification.
We are, the hoists are not being shut down, but the comments that came out of the inspector was basically they need to be replaced, very, very soon.
Understood.
Because of the age, design, etc. And so there is no shutdown impact at this time. If Scott Bush or someone came out and inspected and said shut down, that would be their determination.
Point
Because
of
we're not being inspected.
Point
Thank
of
you.
prerogative
Thank you.
and personal prerogative and order.
Yes.
Commissioner Paravano has absented himself,
Yeah.
recused himself based on conflict of interest.
Yeah.
We seem to have been finished with this, so it would be appropriate to either notify him so he can come back in or to take a break.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we take a 5-minute? Is that all right? Reasonable? 5-minute break, please. Thank you. We'll be back at exactly. Yeah, good. So, 7.
Yeah, okay.
Let's just say 8 o'clock.
We'll be in touch, yeah, absolutely.
8 o'clock. Sorry.
Having allowed further dialogue, I would just simply note that while I have acknowledged to Commissioner Brennan that any past actions I've taken or proposed relating to the district website was not intended as a personal affront, and I've apologized for that to the extent that it was perceived to be that. I have to express deep concern with her vote against taking that prudent action in the face of the very real threat to public safety. And that's a policy issue, not a personal issue. And I want to continue the dialogue that we have, the debate we have,
Point
and
of order.
the disagreements we
order.
have
This-
at a policy level and not a personal level. And that's
This
what
is
I'm
a
intending
further
to do.
attack of me. And
Because you're in the chair.
you're the chair, please call it off. When he's attacking me, I would appreciate it. This isn't the time for personal attacks. This happened at the last board meeting. I was attacked, and again tonight during commissioner comments. Last board meeting, it was Commissioner Paravano, and tonight it's Commissioner Holsinger, and I think it's inappropriate.
Why did you change my
Okay,
seat?
thank you, Commissioner Brennan.
You haven't even answered.
Okay,
it.
commissioners, that's it, Commissioner Holsinger, for your
Yes,
statement?
thank you.
Good
Thank you.
gracious.
Thank you. I'm just going to remind